Hi, I'm Sandy Donaldson, and this is the Giant Slayers podcast, where we shape the giant slayers of the future by studying past and current giant slayers. Come along with me on this journey as we discover the tools that God has given us to be victorious in every situation we encounter. Good morning and welcome to this episode of the Giant Slayers podcast. I'm so excited that you've joined us again this week, and I have some really exciting guests to introduce you to. This is Pastor Jessie and Pastor Allie Sanchez. They actually pastor out in Indio, and this is just a total God connection. Jimmy actually met Pastor Jessie just recently. I think maybe you have met in years past, but reconnected at a Foursquare conference. Yes. And he's just a man on fire for the Lord. And I don't know if you guys got a chance to watch Pastor Jim and Pastor Tim's episode on keys to staying on fire. And one of the keys to staying on fire is just meeting up with people that iron sharpens iron, and getting together with people that will encourage you in your faith. And Pastor Jessie and his wife are that. And so I got to meet Allie, his wife, just a couple months ago, and we went out to dinner, and we talked for like 3 hours straight, and we could have just kept going. So I'm just excited to introduce you to them and let them share a little bit of their story and how they came to know the Lord and what they're doing now. It's awesome. You guys are going to love it. So we won't go any further. But Pastor Jessie, welcome. Yes, Allie, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessie, can you tell us a little bit about your story and your background here in the Valley?
Okay. Well, where do I start? Well, I was born in L.A. My parents moved over here when I was 8 years old, and we lived in Cadiz City for quite some time. We were very poor. We lived in the backyard of a house. I really didn't get to do much, but just always kind of had that lifestyle for a while, for a long time, all the way down to my teens, and growing up in out here in the valley was I'd say challenging, because I only knew Spanish, but that's the way I grew up. So I had to learn English and kind of go with that flow. And so I was a kid, and as I grew older, I lost my Spanish, and now I knew it was English, and my parents weren't too happy about that, of course. But my life was evolved around gang violence, drugs, parties. That's all I seen when I was a young kid. My neighbor was a drug dealer, and I was a little kid, which now is my youth pastor.
Oh, wow.
Oh, now he's my campus pastor, actually.
Come on.
He was a youth pastor, and now he's a campus pastor in Desert Hot Springs. But yeah, that's another story. But that's what it was around. Everything was just where there's poverty, there's drugs, there's violence, everything like that people they gotta know now these days. And but around the age of I want to say about 13, I started a gang in Desert Hot Springs, and my life changed from there. It was pretty bad, pretty violent. Eventually, of course, that style leads you into my life was I actually loved the violent style. I wasn't too much into drugs. I was a gang leader. The gang still exists in Desert Hot Springs. I don't need to mention the name, but it's just there. And there's still guys that I know there. But then I doing that all that gang work and living that lifestyle, I ended up getting locked up for attempted murder, assault with deadly weapon, bodily harm to another person. I was 15 years old.
Wow. And you knew your wife at this time?
She was my girlfriend.
Okay.
We were dating at that time.
I was actually there when he did that one, crime.
She was there. I stabbed somebody in front of Vons.
Daylight, so yeah, he was never. He was kind of crazy like that. Like, he didn't think anything through.
Yeah.
So I knew that one day he was gonna die very soon, because someone was gonna have a gun or something, and because he didn't care. He never like, whatever he wanted to do, he was going to do, and it didn't matter who was there.
No.
So that's what's like.
And you stayed with him through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I
You're
got,
young.
I was locked up, and of course, she did stay with me, and they dropped the attempted murder because the guy, he lived and charges and all that. But I was still.
They couldn't find the weapon.
Yeah, I saw a deadly weapon. And it's a
Wow.
big story. It's a pretty funny story.
Tell
actually.
us. We got time.
Well, no. Well, this time I was at my mom's house. At the house, and there's hot springs, and I always carry this big old knife, kitchen knife. I couldn't afford a pocket knife, so I had to. So give me that steak knife, but I carry a kitchen knife because I knew that once I crossed over to the Vaughn's area, there was where my enemies were at. And so I was like, I gotta go and take something. And so I took a knife. My mom says, "Don't take that. You're gonna get in trouble." I said, "Yeah, whatever." I would never listen to her at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so as her mom and her and her
My
brother.
Mom, yeah, my mom's the one that took
Yeah.
this.
Her brother, which was part of my neighborhood also, and her cousins they all picked me up, and we went to McDonald's, right there. Vaughn's still there. And as we went into McDonald's, we were sitting down, and I remember her mom was ordering some food, and I turned around. Sure enough, I seen guys that I did not like, my enemies, in the other side of the parking lot. So I told her, my brother-in-law, I says, "Look, man, there's those guys over there." He goes, "Oh man, let's go get them," right away.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why we did what we did, because we were just they were doing some, they were shooting at our house, and so we were trying to get at them.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we went over there, my brother-in-law went over there and hit this guy in the head with his fist. And this guy just bounced over, and so this other guy came around, and I got a rock and threw it. It was in front of Vaughn's, broad daylight.
Yeah.
Vaughn's, Del Taco. Everybody was there driving
Yeah.
around. We didn't care. There was no cameras back then, so we were pretty happy about it. But there was we were just there creating a big chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as this one guy, he takes out a knife, I took out mine. Mine was bigger than his, and he threw it on the floor, and I just stuck him right in the stomach. And turned around, and I was ready to stick the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
The guy started running, and I chased him, and I tried to get him as much. I tried to get him, but he ran really quick. He ended up calling some other guys. There was other guys that were parked in on the parking lot. They were his brothers, and one of them got out, and they started fighting with my brother-in-law. And so it was a big chaotic thing right there, and just in front of everybody. So there's a knife fight. There's a flashlight. He hit my brother-in-law in the head, and so it was a big old gang fight going on.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was screaming. My mother-in-law was like, "I'm gonna get my food. I don't care." She was still wanting. She started wanting to eat after all that stuff.
She didn't know.
She didn't know, but
I
she
was
wanted
trying to get her out. Let's go. She goes, no, I'm ordering my
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
She wouldn't leave.
Yes. Yeah, she's ordering her food, and she's got more details because I kind of, like she said, I was more in the zone in that moment. I didn't see everything. I just didn't. I didn't focus on what was around me. I was in that zone, kind of like a football player or a boxer. You just stay in that zone. You look in that zone, and that was just that person that was going to get you. If I seen, that was it. You were the target. That was it. It's over.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know what was going on around me. But we ended up leaving, and of course her mom, we took off right away.
And you had the knife with you?
Yeah,
or?
I took the knife with me.
Okay.
But my gang name of my hat fell off in the parking lot. So they knew which gang did it because it said the name of it. It said the Browns, and I was like, man, my hat, they're going to find out who did it or which gang did it.
Yeah.
But I was just, we took off, went back to her house. I didn't go to my mom's house, we went to her house. And I started watching the knife. The blood was coming out of the knife. Her little cousin was watching everything I did. It's pretty sad. He comes to church now, but he's seen everything, and I traumatized him.
Yeah.
Traumatized everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, make sure no one's coming in, and I'm washing his knife off. And I said, we got to get out of here. So we got in the car, because my brother-in-law had a big old gash in his head.
Mm-hmm.
And so we ended up as we were going to Desert Regional,
Mm-hmm.
and the cops, there was already undercover right behind us. Like,
Wow.
like
Quick.
this, quick. Yeah, and it's only the name of the hat is just, they gave it away.
Yeah.
And there was only certain gang members that they knew that were part of that gang. They were, oh man, so they knew where to
We were
go.
just starting.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, we were just starting up, and so as we were going to the hospital, they stopped us.
Actual cop.
The
No, it was
actual
a cop.
cops. Yeah, they stopped us by right there on Palm Drive,
Mm-hmm.
and I hid the knife under the seat, really deep in there, and she's pretty good. She went off. What'd you tell them?
No, it's because the officer took him, arrested him, and I just got out of the car and I said, officer, what's going on? And he said, well, these were arresting the suspects from an incident that happened. I said, well, I don't know where you got your story, but these are not the suspects. These
She's
are the
lying,
victims.
but she's good.
I said, these are the victims. I go, you need to release them. And he goes, oh, I'm so sorry. And he just
He listened to you?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah,
I
they
was
did.
I was like,
They didn't find the knife.
yeah, I was
15-year-old
like so
you?
confident and like, 'cause
exactly.
I know that's one thing I have, like when it's somebody that I love, I get like these defense, and
Yeah.
I'm like, but when he did that, when he was like, oh, I'm so sorry, and I was thinking in my mind, like, are you serious? Like you're
Yeah.
releasing him to me?
And it worked because my brother-in-law had
And
a
then
gash.
he goes, and I said, when he was before he did, I said, yeah, I go, my brother's in the car. We're on the way to the hospital. We weren't on the way to the hospital. We were on the way to get out.
Yeah.
But I said, we're on the way to the hospital. I know he has a big gash. And I go, we need to take him. And he goes, oh, and he released him. And then he goes, I'll call the ambulance. And I go, no, it's okay. We're on our way. And he goes, no, I have to call the ambulance because he saw his bad his gash was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. I kept trying to convince him,
Yeah.
like, no, because we need to get out of here. But he actually called the ambulance. And so now we literally had to go to the hospital, and we're following the ambulance. Right behind the ambulance. And so when we
With the weapon in the car.
yes,
Yes.
and then the thing that was so upset was I got worse was as soon as we enter the hospital, like the doors open, guess who's right there?
The person that.
Yeah, he's in that, what do you call it, like little
In-
The
in
wheel.
the-
little
in
bed.
the wheel bed.
No, they're wheeling him right
And
crossing.
the oxygen he's
Oh my gosh.
So
going
he
to the
can't
emergency.
talk, and he's like, and we're like, first face he sees is we just walk in and it's his face, and he's just like it's like a scary movie.
Yeah.
Like I'm just thinking about how he feels like he just came
Yeah.
to finish me off.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
And he can't talk because
Yeah.
he has this mask. He can't tell anybody like help me.
Right.
So that was, to him, that's his worst nightmare is him.
Yeah.
But at that time we're not thinking. There's,
Right.
you're just like. But I did. He did tell him. He goes, I'm gonna kill you.
Uh-huh.
Like, and we're all kids, but I just like remember like hitting him like.
Yeah.
Stop it.
He's probably gonna die already.
Right.
Don't just let him.
But he
Just let him.
didn't.
He
No,
didn't.
thank God he didn't
No,
die.
he didn't.
But-
I mean, he passed by in the gurney, and
And then
I
he
seen
goes-
him. He's like this, and I thought, I'm gonna kill you.
And he goes to the waiting room.
And
he
I go
tells
into
everybody.
the waiting room. His parents were there. My enemies
He
were
was
there
right
also,
here.
and I walked to all of them. And I thought, what you guys gonna do? You guys ain't gonna do nothing. I'm right here, right now, man. And she's like,
Right.
you guys ain't gonna do nothing. Mom,
like
Dad,
that
all you guys friends, you ain't gonna do nothing. I'm right here.
Wow.
And they're like just looking at me like this guy is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
He's crazy. I thought about it now that I'm older. I think about it like, yeah, that's
Because
crazy.
you really don't know anyone
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Right.
it's
You know what I
pretty
mean? Like,
hard. Yeah.
It's probably, if you
So
ever
then I-
met someone like that, you
Yeah.
probably met one person, but that's even hard to
Yeah.
know, like, that you actually.
So yeah, it was a hard life, at that time. But I didn't care. I just didn't have nothing to look forward to. I wanted to get locked up. I wanted to go to prison. I wanted to become those guys that, caught shots in the streets and all that. But I didn't. I wasn't thinking about the future. I didn't know how that was going. I was just wanted to be that, inspired to be someone, really nobody, but it's in my
Yeah.
mind it's somebody. And but she was there, and she's like, "Come on, let's go. You can't be,
So you did end up getting arrested.
I went. I went back to the neighborhood a little bit, and they were looking for me
Yeah.
because they told on me. They told on me, you
Yeah.
know. And I was pretty mad because in the streets, you're not supposed to tell nobody. You're supposed to take care of business outside.
Right.
So I was like, man, this is whack. You know, this is not right. You know, that's the
They're
way you
not real
think.
king members.
This,
That's
yeah,
what
this
they
ain't no
say.
real, you know.
Yeah.
They told on me and they're looking for me. And so I did have some connections. I had a friend that worked in police department.
But that was the second time.
No, well,
Yeah.
actually it was, I called.
The second.
And I says, hey, no, I called that day.
Oh, the first
Yeah,
time.
the first time. And they said, they're looking for you, man. And second time too, because I there's this one guy, his name was Tony Casas.
Mm-hmm.
And he's passed away now from cancer, but he helped me out a lot. He was a San Quentin, he worked in San Quentin at once as a gang specialist.
Mm-hmm.
And he would talk to me about the prison life, and he would show me the real pictures.
Trying to get you to not want to
Yeah,
do it, right?
it was like-
Show
But
me
it was like
videos.
inspiring you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was inspiring because when you show someone like that the pictures and the names and on the knives they make and all, it's like, okay, now I know how to survive. I know where I'm going. I know he was trying for the best to help me, but I wasn't scared of that. If I wasn't
Yeah.
scared of what I did, and I wasn't scared of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, this is what I'm looking forward to. All right. But, you know, I did get locked up. And so I was locked up I was a juvenile, so I wasn't in prison. I was in the juvenile security unit. So you only, you get your own cell. There's like, I think there's 10 of them in there. And you have like a cage around there. You can't go out. I'm there. You only come out once in an hour of the day, unless you got some special going on. And I didn't mind it.
Yeah.
I was alone, and I was okay with it. And then there, I even got smarter. I got more wiser. And she was still stuck around me. Man, you want to keep going?
Yeah.
Yes. I did. I was supposed to get 5 years in Hawaii Youth Authority in Chino. So that's like a miniature prison for. It's more crazier because young men, they don't have the mind to hold back
Yeah.
their words or their actions like adults. They're more cunning. They're more wise in their criminal lifestyle. Whereas young men, we don't care. So it's
Yeah.
more crazier in the Youth Authority. I think they closed it down now. But I was going to do 5 years. Somehow, which I know now is the Lord,
Yeah.
I was there in India for like a good 9 months, something like that, going through the trial and all that. When they want to make sure that if he was going to die or not, my lawyer came. I couldn't afford
Yeah.
one, but the state, and he said, you know what, we're waiting to see what's going to happen because he's pretty bad. And still, I didn't care. I still didn't think about it. And eventually, he made it out, thank God. And I ended up getting for assault with a deadly weapon and bodily harm. And the laws back then weren't too harsh as they are now for young adults or youth. It was they weren't as harsh now. Now they if you do something like that, you're gone for 25 years. Even if you're 16, especially if you're in a gang, because now they got you for gang enhancement and all that. So
Right.
everything was a little more different. I did get a year in Twin Pines Ranch it's going up to the hill, way up in the mountains. And I escaped. Yeah, I took off. And it was crazy because I found out I didn't want to be there. I found a way to get out. And it's not like they have all kinds of bars, but it's a long ways up there.
Yeah.
And I knew a guy there. They would call him Chief. He was an Indian. He was locked up in there also. And he escaped once, but he gave him another chance. And I ended up, he was doing pretty good and getting his GED and all that. And I ended up influencing him. I would say, how did you get out of there? And he told me how he got out, And says, if you go with me, I'll take care of you, I'll make sure you're okay in the streets. Get me out of here, man, please. Get me out of here. So I wanted to go back and do more for the neighborhood and put in more work, as they say. I wanted the name of the gang to grow. I wanted it to be known. It's just nothing but pride. But he fell for it. He did. And he was a role model in that place. So I ended up influencing him, and I influenced other 6 people. So us, the 6, 7, myself, we all left. And it was during a medication time where the staff wasn't watching. We already had this plan after, it took a couple of weeks. And the funny thing, Sandy, is that I had a Bible with me. I had my name because, I would still try to hear God. I say, well, let me see what's going on. And this one man, he gave me a Bible, had my name on it. I put it in my pillowcase with my clothes. I put it in the bottom for just to be a lucky charm. I thought, well, it's gonna help me out, so I put it. I did take off with it, but we took off. It took me 6 hours to get down that mountain.
Wow.
Yes, 6 hours. Ended up in Cabazon before there was a casino, and we were there for a while. My dad picked me up. He didn't want me to leave. I would tell him I'm gonna leave, and no, don't do it. And I said, I'm gonna leave. He picked me up, and he picked up my friend Chief. And we were both hiding in the backseat. We ended up going to my house, and it didn't take that long where they already had the house surrounded. But there was no one in the house at that time when they were knocking, and they couldn't go in unless my parents were there or whatever. And so as soon as I kind of peeked that they were gone, the next day, of course, I was like, okay, man, I'm leaving. I went to Mexico for like 3 months or something like that. And I was out there for a while, and I kept in touch with her.
Yeah.
And
that was before cell phones.
Yeah, I would just walk down to the
prepaid phone.
Yeah, I would walk to the phones that it was the payphones.
Yeah.
And in Mexicali.
Collect.
Yeah, because I have family over there, and I would call collect, and she'll accept it. How you doing? How's everything? And she was always in love with me. I loved her. She loved me. We were kids.
Yeah.
But I obviously I wasn't thinking about her anyways. I was just living my life.
Yeah.
And my dad had a heart attack, and I talked to him. And this was, of course, I'm going so fast in the story because there's so much details. He says, son, you're stressing me out, in Spanish, and you need to turn yourself in. I said, oh, another one. I said, no, now if I really turn myself in, I'm really going to get locked up.
Yeah.
More time. Yeah.
And I'm really going to do some time, because now I escaped now, and the judge told me if you do anything, you're done.
Yeah.
You're really going to do 5 years. And so I knew that in the back of my head. Oh man, no, I don't want to go. But my dad, I love my dad, and he's gone, of course, with the Lord. But I did put him through a lot, and so it took me some time to think about it. And I talked to him. I said, well, if I go in, I'm going to do 5 years. He said, well, yeah, but if you don't do it, you're always going to be running.
Yeah.
And I did. I called the same guy that I talked to when I find out they were looking for me. This time he said, they're still looking for me now. Jesse, why did you leave? And so I said, Tony, I said, I'm going to turn myself in. Get this over with my life. See where this leads me. But if you can pick me up, I appreciate it. So I got a ride back from Mexicali. I went back home, and early in the morning, about 5 in the morning, and he showed up around 6. He picked me up in Desert Hot Springs, and he took me back to the juvenile place, and he talked to me about a lot of things. He knew a lot of people in the system. So he says, don't worry, Jesse, I'll put a word in for you. And it's funny because I ended up going back to the same place. I was there again, going through the whole process, the whole routine, getting fights in there and all kinds of stuff. And the judge gave me another year. I was unbelievable.
Just 1 year.
No,
Another year. Yeah,
I think they just said that you just have to complete what you already had.
No,
right?
but it was a whole year because I did 2 years total.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So they didn't really add to
So
it.
you
really
had
add.
this kind of odd favor.
Yes.
Even though you were not.
I didn't know. Yes.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't deserve it.
You can almost see God's hand on your life the whole
Yeah.
this whole time
Well, as
through.
we're talking, of course, that's a testimony of mine. Yes, you're right. It's like God's hand was always on my life
Yeah.
from the beginning. And there's all kinds of stories that I have. But from the beginning, yes, God's hand was always on my life. And that's where I went to Chino. But it was a placement for youth, right next to where I was supposed to be at. That was CYA, California Youth Authority. And there is where I got saved. That's where the chaplain led me to the Lord. After a while, I was there for a while, and then he led me to the Lord. But that's where I got saved.
How did you go into depth? Because like I'm seeing this really harsh person that doesn't want anything to do with the Lord and is being demonically oppressed and to coming to know the Lord. Like how did that happen?
I did. This man was persistent. His name was Ruben Morales, and he was just like I was, but he was a chaplain and also a counselor, and he had the tattoos in the back. I don't have tattoos because they wouldn't allow me to have it. The gang leaders told me, if you're gonna be a leader, you need to be clean. You can't do drugs. I would smoke weed, but I did drugs, but I didn't like them.
Yeah.
I just whatever. But it was just I was never into heroin, nothing like that. My thing was violence, my gang, the gang. Everything was gang. I wanted the gang. And but this is I watched him. I said, well, he looks like he came out of a background. He was older. We call them veterans, veteranos. And he was always coming, knocking at my place, where I was sleeping at. You want to come to church? I said, man, no, I don't want no church. And all right, and be next week, come around again. Hey, I just want to see if you want to come around, come to church. And they had church there. They had a little chapel there.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't want no church, man. Come on, man. And actually, I was doing drugs there too, a little speed there. Don't ask me how it gets in there, but it's just there. Speed, little weed, everything. So I was still, like I said, I wasn't addicted. I was just trying to pass time.
Yeah.
But he kept going and persistent. And then eventually I says, man, this guy if I don't go, he won't stop.
Yeah.
And what got my attention, really, Sandy, there was this young man, just like I was, that was from the north side. So to explain this, we have the Sureños, the south side, and the north side was kind of going from the borderline of Bakersfield all the way up to Sacramento and those areas going up the north side of California. And I'm from the south side of California. We don't get along. But this one guy from the north side of California, he got saved. And then I seen him walking around with the Bible, and he was hanging around with Ruben Morales. And I was like, man, this guy. So I kept my eye on him to see if he was for real. So I just kept like, who is this holy roller here? And I just kept looking at him for a while, studying him out. And he was ministering to, the youth there, talking to them and carrying his Bible. And he's a pastor now. We still keep in touch. And so that got my attention. I went to Ruben Morales, and I was watching him a little bit. And eventually he kept bugging me, come on, Jesse, let's go. And I said, all right, I'll go. It took a couple of tries. I heard the young man, his name was Eric. I heard him preach. I was okay. His testimony, I was a gang member and this and that. Okay. And then there's one time Ruben Morales took us to church outside of the facility. He got permission. He's a counselor. He's got the good juice there. He's got the favor. And so we went. I don't remember the sermon. I don't remember what was preached. It was a church kind of like this size. And I just remember saying, okay, I'm going to go to the altar. I went to the altar and knelt down. I asked God, if you're for reals, if you are the God that everyone says you are, like my mom, my dad, everyone, they went to church, if you're the God that everyone says you are, change my life. Because I know I'm going to die. Go to prison for the rest of my life, I'm going to kill somebody. Because that was my plan.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something bad to people too, because that's the way it was. And when I got up from my knees, my whole life changed. And I used to cuss so much. I stopped cussing right there.
Wow.
God took the cuss away. You couldn't cuss. I couldn't cuss. I'm sure if I wanted to, but it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so I got up and I went outside. I looked at the trees. They were green. They always were green, but I noticed that they were bright green. The sky was blue. And now I come with that verse, I was one blind, but now I see.
Yeah.
And this one guy came up to me and said, I told you Jesus was real. And I smiled, and I never smiled. And I was like, dang, God, it's something else. That's the way I was a little kid. Yeah, wow. I got in that van going back to the facility, and I was just in this awe, like if I was in this natural high.
Yeah.
Going back, and that night I just stayed to myself, knowing that my life changed, that this something happened. This wasn't something, this was not a drug, this was not religion.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember the sermon. I don't remember nothing.
Yeah.
I just talked to God in church, and I said, okay, this is what I want. This is, if you're real, this is what changed me, man. He did. Yeah, it's a funny thing too, because after at that day, when I went to sleep, and the next day I went up to Eric, and we're not supposed to talk because there's guys from the south side watching me, and I went to Eric, and like the kind of person I am, I don't care who's looking at me, I'll do what I want.
Right.
So if they want something, we can get down. I still had a little, I wasn't saved, but my mind was not renewed right. But I went up to Eric and I go, hey, how you doing? He backed up. And I go, no, I'm not here to fight. I just want to shake your hand. And I shook his hand. Oh, okay, my name is Jessie. And he goes, my name is Eric. So cool, man. I just got saved. So I don't know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it. It's coming out of me. And then I went back to the cottage where I was at, and these guys came around and they said, hey, what's up, man? Why are you talking to this guy? He's from the north side, He wears red. You wear blue. I said, man, be quiet. I said, there ain't no colors in Jesus.
Wow.
And it just came out of me.
Wow.
So, and they just looked at me, and they knew I was a serious guy. And they said, all right, whatever, man. And they kind of stepped away. And then the process began. And this man began. I didn't know how to read. I didn't know how to write. And he gave me his Bible, which I still have his name on it. He's gone with the Lord also. But he taught me how to preach in there, how to pray. And so all that stuck with me, and then grew eventually and grew. And she stuck with me also.
Wow.
Yeah, so and kind of course, that's how I got saved.
So when you got out, you were 17?
18.
18 when you got out. And Allie, you stayed with him through all of that. Were you saved?
I was saved before, yeah, but I was already backslidden.
You were backslidden?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me how you came back to following the Lord wholeheartedly.
Well, when he came out, that's when I gave my life back to the Lord. He actually, because I would always minister to him, I would go to Christian camp in the summer.
Yeah.
So I would come back all fired up and try to get him saved. And he would just, I don't want to hear it. I don't believe in that. And so when he came out, he was trying to get me to go to church because he started going to church. And then I didn't want to go to church.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you never listened to me.
Right.
When I try to get you to church, and now you want to go to church, and now I don't want to go to church. And so and just after a while, I just went. I started, would go on Sundays, but just the ministry that we were going to was all young. Like everyone, the pastor was probably, and maybe a couple of people, but it was a small place. But everyone in there was youth, and we would just go. And after a while, it just it touched my heart, and I just wanted more of God. And so I just got this hunger for the Lord, and I would just be up all middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, just reading my word.
Wow.
And my mom would be like, "What are you doing? You have to go to school in the morning." And I'm reading the Bible, And so
Talk about a 180.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yes.
before, when I was younger, I would smile, but when I didn't know the Lord, I was just always just, like, if you looked at me, I was just really hardened. My dad took his life when I was 2 years old, and I had a lot of, like close deaths where, like, my brother was killed in a gang shooting when I was 11. And then my mom's sister was the only sister she had, which was like my second mom when I was 13.
Wow.
So that was like, I loved God before that, but then after that, I started getting like, you know, just not sure about it. But when I would still go to Christian camp, I would still get reached. But then we would go back to church, and it just seemed everyone was dead there, and I no one was like trying to like disciple me or help me through the little blockage of Christian camp being fired up, and now how do you live life with the real stuff, you know? And so I didn't have that, and it wasn't there at the church as far as I knew. And so I was already, like you said, I was hard. And so God started softening my heart, and I just started getting really hungry for the Lord. And I remember before, I was in Mark chapter 16, and right before I got to the last verses, the Lord said, pay attention. I heard his voice. And that's one thing I started right away, is hearing God's voice. When I gave my life back to the Lord. And he said, pay attention, because this is what you're going to do.
Wow.
And so then,
I just got goosebumps.
Yeah, it says, these signs shall follow them that believe. They shall lay hands on the sick. And so I'm reading it. Everything was good till I got, and they shall speak in new tongues. And I remember thinking, what? I thought tongues was of the devil. And so
because Mom was like, baptized at once.
Yeah. And that was the church I was going to, and they didn't believe in the gifts. Yeah. And so that's why they were dead.
Yeah.
But I read that, and so I was like, okay, I have to. Obviously, I heard God's voice, and so obviously this is of God. Right. And it says right here, you speak in other tongues. And so the next time I went to service, they said, if anyone needs prayer, come to the front. So I went to the front, and I just wanted to pray for my mom, you know. And the pastor goes, what, do you pray in tongues? And I said, no. And I was still a little unsure, right?
Yeah.
And so he said, do you believe God can give you the gift of tongues? And I just said, well, I believe God can do all things. And he said, well, raise up your hands. So I raised up my hands. And I just started praying, if this is, God, if this is of you, I want it. If it's not, I don't. But if it's of you, I do. But if it's not, I don't. And I was doing that.
Yeah.
And then I could feel like
if
the
that
little
badge
grieving.
Of doubt.
Yeah, I felt that time I didn't know what it meant to grieve the Holy Spirit. But I could feel like the grievance of the Holy Spirit. And then kind of like, what are you doing? And so then I said, I just said, okay. So I just started worshiping the Lord. Yeah. And I started just adoring him with my words, everything he is, and how I love him. And so I was just speaking in English. And as I was speaking, all of a sudden, I felt this heat hit my stomach. Wow. Like I've never felt before, just a warm, but warmer, like heat, like between warm and hot. Yeah. And it was just in my stomach, but then I felt it coming up and just warm. The warmth was moving. And then I could feel it going just up my chest. And when it got to my throat, I just started speaking in tongues. And I was like, and I was so loud, and I started shaking. And there was like, at that time, they had like a men's home. The pastor had a men's home, so which means like a place where men could get rehabilitated. And so they were around me praying, but I ended up being so loud that I was just the loudest one, and I was shaking.
Wow. And
then after the whole thing, he told me, he goes, I told you it was real, you know.
It's because you were already baptized with the Holy Ghost at that point?
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
And so then it was Friday. It was a Friday night, and I remember on Friday nights we would go out and pass out flyers, and we were passing out flyers, and I was telling her, I got baptized with the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, and I started speaking in tongues. I was freaking everyone out.
Yeah.
People from school, I'm like, and I was just telling them about Jesus. So when I went back to school, I would make sure I carry my Bible in my hand, because I just want to like.
What school did you guys go to?
I went to Cathedral City High. He never got there because he was already locked up. We went to Palm Springs High.
I was in Palm Springs. I dropped out when I was in 9th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so this time I was already in Cathedral City High, but I wanted to carry my Bible. Like, I want everyone to know. Yeah. And then I was just like, I kind of still had that little fight in me, because I never was in gangs and like that, but I always really, like, I was a fighter since I was like, my first fight, I think I was 5 years old.
Isn't it amazing how the Holy Spirit, like, God has a plan for you, but the enemy wants to, like, thwart that plan, and he'll use what's in you. Like, that is so from the Lord to fight against the enemy, but the enemy tries to take it and
you fight people. Because I've always had it since I was, like I said, I was 5 years old when my first fight, I just beat up these brothers. And then after that, I would get, a lot of them was boy fights. I would fight with boys. But I was always a little fighter. And so I realized later that what I wanted was like, tell me something, because, you know, they would kind of push my little button, and I went that way. But I remember I was at school, and then these guys that I used to know, they were kind of nerdy kids, but and they started singing. I used to be a sinner, but Jesus set me free. They started like mocking me.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, Jesus set me free, and you got a problem with it? And they're like, got so scared because I think they thought like, oh, she's Christian, now we can mess with her.
Right.
But then they're like,
oh no,
we're so sorry. And I'm like, yeah. But yeah, that's how I came back to the Lord, and ever since then I never went back. I never went back to the world. Yeah.
Praise God.